I heard that you've had quite a busy day today here in
Yes,
Riga.
yeah, we got up quite early and went to the Latvian television station, and I was interviewed on television, and then I had another interview with somebody, and then had another interview with somebody very nice who does the culture news on your news, which I was very impressed by, because we don't have cultural news in my country. We have very little culture anymore, and so there's no news about it. So I was very impressed that you have cultural news. Yes, so that, and then we had the rather chilly walking tour that had to be cut short because we were getting too cold. It's very cold in Riga. So we only did about 2/3 of the walking tour, and then we had to go inside to thaw out. So, but yes, it's been quite busy, but very beautiful, very lovely.
What are your impressions so far of what you've seen in Riga?
Riga and Latvia.
This is apparently your first time here.
Everybody has said, when I said I was going to Riga, people said, "Oh, Riga's so beautiful, it's such a beautiful city." And it is, it's a very, very beautiful city. And a very historic city, obviously, also. Very interesting and very moving to hear about the recent history of Latvia and to see that wonderful freedom monument. Because I think we were talking about it earlier, being from a country like ours, we think our history is sort of quite a long time in the past, where you come to places where great historical events have taken place comfortably within living memory, and it brings certain things home to you, that history is ongoing, and that there are great sort of rights that one can take for granted if one isn't careful about them. So it's rather bracing and inspiring to come here and see Riga and to hear your recent history. Of course, I remember seeing it in the news years ago, and sort of praying for the people of the Baltic states and other places, and now, like Ukraine, seeing all the Ukrainian flags in Riga as well is very moving. Your support for Ukraine does you great credit. So it's wonderful being here. It's very beautiful. It's a bit cold, and I have been told to come back in July, August, September, when it's not quite as cold. But I would like to, and I'd like to get outside Riga as well, though beautiful though it is. I believe 50% of your country is forest. I'd like to see some of your forests and lakes and coast. You've got a lot of white sand beaches as well.
About 500 kilometres of it, yes.
So you've got this would be a nice place to come in the summer for a bit of a summer holiday, maybe. I may be back later in the year.
If you saw the Freedom Monument, I suppose you also saw that little black or dark grey cat that was staring at you.
Oh yes, there's a cat on the Riga.
Yeah. Do you know what that cat is about?
Is this about flow?
It is.
Yes, I've been hearing a lot about flow. And
have you seen it?
You're very, very... I haven't seen it yet, but that you're all justly very proud. And it's the first Latvian piece of work to win a Golden Globe, I understand, which is congratulations to them and everybody. That's wonderful, isn't it? And it's up for an Oscar.
Yes, and going to BAFTAs in a...
Oh, is it up for a BAFTA as well, is it? Mm-hmm. Oh, well, fingers crossed for all that. Well, I hope you win everything.
But going to the subject of Midsomerar murders, of course, because that's why we're here. It does feel like a very British TV series to me, but yet it somehow has managed to become very popular abroad. Why do you think that is?
Well, I think it's probably very popular everywhere because it is very British, and because I think things that try to sort of appeal to everybody become a bit sort of formless and banal or something, whereas I think you can see anything that's very specifically about a specific place and a specific group of people, and if you're true to those people and to that place, then I think that the human truth that's contained in that will translate into any culture and any language. I think if you try and do something that appeals to everybody all the time, it's not really specific to anything and doesn't really connect to anything truthfully human. So I think it's all the things that are human we can relate to all of those things. So I think, wherever the show sells and wherever the show is popular, I think it's because of that specific thing which people see as being very British, in a way, I think it's starting now to go on so long that it becomes one of the things that sort of define an idea of Britishness, is that people think of it. I think one of the great stars of the show is the countryside itself, which is so beautiful and interesting, and the big houses that we film in, and the churches, and there's so many things that I suppose are quite specifically English in that way. And then I don't know, the eccentricity of the characters. I don't know that the whodunit thing. I mean, you go back to people like Agatha Christie and Dorothy L. Sayers and people that are very English, very British. But I would think, I don't know about this. I'm sort of imagining that many nations and many cultures have their whodunits and have their policemen or their detectives or something, don't they? As a young person, I used to like to read Agatha Christie and all that, and Raymond Chandler and all those sorts of things, because there's an innate tension about the whodunit and the mystery thriller thing, I think, because you start off with like there's been a murder, who did this, and then it takes the rest of the story to find out who did it, and so the story begins with the murder and it ends with the who did it. So it can't. There's a tension in that sort of holds your story together, whilst you then go and do lots of other things. And all the people I've mentioned, Agatha Christie, Raymond Chandler, and I hope we do it as well, is in the course of the investigation, you meet other characters and other people, and that they're interesting for all sorts of different reasons. Certainly in Midsommar and in a lot of the detective things, people always lie to the police. People always lie to the police in Midsommar Murders. Because they've got something to hide, because they're not who they say they are, because they're stealing money, because they're having an affair, whatever it is. And I think people like to see people lying, and they like to try and guess why they're lying, and people like to try to figure out who the murderer is. And it's about sort of revealing secrets, I think, as well. Is the policeman in our show, two policemen go into a village somewhere, and they uncover the secrets of this little closed community. I think that's another thing about the mystery thriller for us as well, is we always work in a village, in a little village, or some institution within a village. So you work in little... it's always quite a small, closed community that you work in, that gives you this rather intense group who have their quarrels and jealousies, rivalries or whatever, and then they that stir up the feelings that lead somebody to murder. But there's a kind of tension within an enclosed group in that way, I think, that you get in a village group.
But there's something about it being a refuge for the audience as well. I mean, Latvian screenwriter Tabita Rudzāta wrote something that I found interesting. She says that Midsommar intentionally offers a nostalgic look back at times when things were more simple, quote unquote, largely fitting into the cozy mystery genre. Is that something that you also think about when you play your role, being cozy?
No. In fact, I think it's perceived that way, and the show's changed over 25 years. It's a long time to be filming something. I think certainly British television is much more self-censoring than it used to be. So there are things that you wouldn't see on television now that would have been fine 25 years ago that you won't see now. But I think there's a perception that Midsommar, because of the setting and the country houses and the eccentric locals and the whatever, you've got the roses around the door of the cottage and the village pub, all that is quite sort of cosy crime kind of things. But at the same time, I think you don't want to be kind of consumed by that coziness. So if anything, for myself, I would look for moments to play against that, and where there is a moment for Bārnabija to be, I don't know, sort of anti-cozy. I know that means that he gets cross about things, or is angry about something, or protests about something. But I think that for myself, I look for ways of not playing into that. Otherwise, it all becomes a bit sort of sugary. I think it all becomes a bit like sort of children's food. It's all been sort of pureed. And I think it's nice if it's got some other surprising elements in it.
And there's lots of surprising elements, of course, in every series. Midsomeras is very famous for its eccentric and bizarre and over-the-top murders. And people get killed by cheese and wine bottles and tumble dryers, better than me. But it does feel like the show hasn't really taken itself too seriously ever. Is humor a part of that this show?
Oh yeah, absolutely. It's one of the things that I felt very fortunate about when I was first approached about taking it over from John Nettles, was that I was already a very great fan of the show. So I felt like as a fan of the show, as a viewer of the show, I felt like I had a strong sense of what it was and what I loved about it and why. That I hope made it easier for me to turn up and then kind of carry that on, because I think I understood it. And a big part of it is that mixture of it's this whodunit, it's this mystery thriller, and then there's these bizarre elements, there's these odd moments of humour, and many of the murders themselves, the kind of things that you refer to, where people die in quite extreme or bizarre circumstances, and that's a crucial part of the show that I think does, again, keep it in a sort of an area that it sort of got an area to itself on British television, I think, because among other shows where you might compare it to that are, the sort of murder mystery thriller, the whodunit sort of things, they just don't do the kinds of things that we do, where a man is found tied to a tree in the forest, covered in truffle oil. He's been eaten by a wild boar. And nobody else is going to put that in their show. It seems it's too out there. It's too sort of it's too bonkers. It's too mad. But all that sort of creativity that our writers bring to the art of murder, I think, because hopefully they're always sort of believable enough that you can enjoy them, but they're not the sort of things that people are thinking, oh, that could happen to me. I could be crushed by a gargoyle falling off my castle and hitting me on the head. Those sorts of bizarre deaths.
And it's also about the police work. I remember you saying that there was a poll or survey in the British police about which TV series portrayed the police work most accurately, and
yes.
Midsomer Murders came at last.
Yes. Yes, of which I'm extremely proud, because you can see there are things that you can see that give you a very detailed view of exactly what police work is like, and some people may find some of it interesting, but it's just not what we do anyway. It's not the sort of thing that we do. There's lots of things that we do in our fiction that are not necessarily strictly how they might happen in life. But there used to be a thing about, I think for a while, a little bit after I joined the props department, they give you all your props, and whenever we went to a murder scene, they'd say, do you want the sort of blue suit and the blue boots and the blue gloves? And I think, no, because it's not the kind of thing that we do. There's shows that really do, that look like they're trying to do the really sort of forensic detail really, really, really accurately. And I think it's just not where our strengths lie. It's not the sort of thing that we focus on too much. It's kind of not what our show's about. It's about people getting stressed and angry and worked up in this beautiful rural setting and kicking off in quite an eccentric way. And the police procedural element of it is, I mean, like, again, you would say, obviously, she's not a policewoman. You wouldn't say Miss Marple. You wouldn't say, oh, her police procedure's not very accurate. You'd think it's Miss Marple. It's a different kind of story. And if you want to see the detailed police things, see a different show. But I was quite proud that we came bottom of that league table when I heard about it. I don't know though how accurate the most accurate police drama is about life in the police, because I expect, like most jobs, quite a lot of police work, I imagine, is, I don't know, sitting at a computer and going through loads of records of car registration numbers or something, and then eventually going, oh, here's one. Oh, and then 2 hours later you go, oh, I found another one. Well, you don't want to see that 2 hours where you're going through everything not finding it.
Not very TV appealing.
It's not necessarily, depending on the sort of thing that you like, but I think for what we do, it's a different sort of market that we're aiming at, I suppose.
But you've been playing Detective Bārnabija for almost 15 years. It's
really about 15 years. I started filming in 2010, yeah.
As much as John Nettles did, or even more now?
It's more years, but
less series.
We've had 2 years in which we didn't film in those 15. So that would mean this year, when we film this year, that'll be 13. I think he did 13.
Right.
And also, he often shot 8 episodes in a year, which we don't usually do more than 4 now. So I think he did about 83 episodes or something. I think I've done about 55 or something now. So I'm closing on him, but I'm still a long way behind, yeah.
But would it be fair to say that this role has kind of become the defining role of your career?
Yes, I suppose it has, which is very odd, because, you know, I've been working for, 25 years or so, or would it be? About 25 years, doing a variety of things, and, you know, doing, I don't know, depending on who you talk to, doing okay, doing quite well. And then somebody says, would you be interested in this? And you want, but initially they said, oh, well, let's do 4 episodes. And I thought, 4 episodes, that's good, because that'll give me time to kind of, you know, warm up and get into it and figure out how to do it. And then they said, oh, we'll make the first series of 8 episodes. I thought, oh, this is great. Okay, I'll do 8 episodes. And then I thought it would be nice if they recommissioned it, because that would sort of justify the judgment of the people who gave me the job, you know, is that they want to make more. So getting a second year was sort of a validation. That was very good. And then it's just sort of gone on and on. At the time, if they'd said to me, would you sign up to do Midsomeras for the next 15 years, I'd have thought, my God, no, you're insane. Of course not. I couldn't. That's the rest of my life. I can't do that. But, you know, 1 year leads to the next year and the next year. As I say, there's a couple of years we haven't filmed. I've had a year off. And then they come back and say, oh, we'll do some more, and you do some more. And it just sort of goes on. And then suddenly you get up one day and you think, oh, wow, I've been doing this for 15 years. And it does seem like, except you haven't, you know, as I say, you wouldn't sign up to do it as a 15-year chunk. You do a year at a time, and then you look back and go suddenly, oh, it's 15 years. How can it be that? But I guess, yes, the other things that I've done prior to Midsommar are now getting longer ago, and people are less likely to know and remember them.
How do you feel about that fact as an actor, that you'll most likely be remembered as Detective Bārnabija?
Well, actually, pretty good when you put it like that. I always think of it sounds a bit pretentious, but I'll tell you anyway, since it's just between ourselves. There's a wonderful Preston Sturges film called Sullivan's Travels, which is it's a story about a Hollywood director. He's a great. He's a very successful Hollywood director, and he directs these brilliant comedies that people love. And then he gets into a depression and decides that he doesn't want to do this anymore. He wants to make serious drama. He wants to talk to the real people of America about the real life of the American person. So I think he dresses himself up as a hobo or something, and he tries to sort of hit the road and hoboing around, being a vagrant around America to find out what the real America is, so he can get material to make a really hard-hitting film about what's really happening. And he does this for a bit and tries to explore things, and lots of things go wrong, and it's terribly funny. It's a wonderful film. And anyway, he ends up in prison, and it's all just terrible. It's all a terrible idea, and it's all gone wrong. But he ends up in prison, and then with all these real sort of gnarled, nasty prisoners. And then one night they have a film night, and he's not interested. He thinks, oh, and he goes to this film night, and they're sort of Mickey Mouse cartoons or something, I think. And all these thugs and murderers are sat there sort of laughing and having a great time and having all the time. And he realises that what he's been doing all along, before he thought, I've got to make serious things, was he was entertaining people, and people were loving his work and having a marvellous time with it. And I hope that is, as I say, that's quite a pretentious way of answering your question, but I hope that people find that entertainment in Midsommar, and I think that if you're going to be an actor, if you're going to work in the television, you're entertaining people. You're giving people entertainment, and I think that Midsommar's quite a sort of broad entertainment in that there's bits of it that I find very funny, and bits of it that I find very moving, and it's a whole big lot of things within the kind of show that it is. Bits of it can be serious, bits of it can be funny. And I think that's a reasonable thing to want to give the world as an actor. I was very interested to hear during COVID. I think that distributors, broadcasters around the world had bought up, I don't know, a year or 2 years of Midsommar episodes, and then the lockdown happened around the world, and they showed them all in 3 months, I think, because people wanted to see them. And so they were buying more episodes because they'd gone through 2 years' worth in the first 3 months, I think. Because people wanted a kind of escapism of all the news and everything in their lives. Everybody's thinking, oh, what's happening here? This is terrible. This is the end of the world. It's the end of civilization. And then they could go, oh, put the television on. Oh, Midsommar. Let's watch Midsommar. And we go, doodly doodly doo, doodly doodly doo, doo 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 doo. And you're sort of carried off into this, the word, like the quote you were saying about, there's a coziness to it. There's a comfort to it. There's a consolation in it of things, whatever's happening outside in the world, you can kind of shut it out for 2 hours and go into this sort of chaotic and eccentric world of Midsommar and sort of escape from perhaps the horrors of your own world and your own life. And that, again, I think that's if you're going to, we're all doing something, making something, giving something to the world. I think that's a pretty decent thing to try to give to the people who like it.
I love that answer. Thank you so much. I know that John Nettles said that he had decided to retire from the role when he no longer could run as fast and he couldn't make up new expressions when he saw a dead body on screen.
I didn't know that.
Have you ever felt like that? Have you ever felt like calling it a day?
Well, if I stopped when I couldn't run as fast, I'd have stopped a few years ago now. I probably couldn't run as fast now as John Nettles can now. No, I don't have a particular point at which I think I would stop. I suppose I'd stop if I think it's one of those things that you kind of know. That you just sort of get up one morning and go, oh, not this again. I don't want to do this again. I know people who've been in long-running TV shows who do, I think they start to feel like they go a bit mad with it, really. They get sort of depressed and they go a bit nuts with it. And I don't think I've done that yet. Nobody's told me, you're going nuts, you have to leave. Nobody said that to me directly. Also, because recent years, we've only been shooting 4 a year. John did 8 a year, and other people doing long-running programmes, like if you're in a soap or something like that, you're doing it for 50 weeks a year. It's kind of 5 months of the year is very intense filming of Midsommar.
What do you do in the rest of that time? Do you?
I don't know. I seem to be terribly busy. I can't really tell you what sort of things I do. I spend time with my family, whether they like it or not. I spend time with my family and I see friends and I go to art galleries and I write a bit and I do the shopping and the cooking and, there's always so much admin as well, isn't there? I'm sure everybody finds when they don't go to work or if they stop work for a period of time, they find all their time now is filled up with all these other things that
There's no free time.
There's no free time, and all the things that have now blossomed to fill up all of their time are the things that they used to sort of squeeze in around all the work that they used to do. So I don't know. I don't have any great projects. I travel a bit, and holidays and things like that. But you add all those things together, and they
add up as a very good life.
To filling up a lot of time. Yeah, and it's it's very nice. I've got some audio books that I do and odd bits of like readings or things like that, but nothing major. Probably shopping and cooking probably take up quite a lot of my time.
Thank you for that insight. To end our conversation, what do you think is it that helps Midsommar Murders renew itself for so long?
Well, I think it is... There's... At the moment, there's 4 of us are the sort of regular cast. But each new episode has a new writer, a new director, and mostly a new cast in a new setting, in a new village, in a new milieu. So I think a great thing about it is you watch an episode of Midsomer Murders from whenever, and you can almost immediately go, oh, this is Midsomer Murders. Even just somebody describing a bit of the plot is, there's a murder at a vintage car rally in a private girls' school, and you think, oh, it's Midsomer. Who else would do that? It's kind of already, it's insane, so it's Midsomer. I think there's so much variety within the kind of the formula, such as it is for Midsomer, is so big and so vague. It is basically, I think, it is... So something happens in a rural location and 2 policemen turn up, and we as the audience go with those policemen to see this, to enter into this new world through their eyes and ears. And that's it, really. You go to a rural location to investigate something and take... So if you say to a writer, you've got, it needs to be, whatever it is, 90 TV minutes, 2 policemen go to a rural location to investigate something.
Yeah, it's almost like carte blanche.
And it can be, it can be pretty bonkers. It doesn't have to sit with this or this. And, usually now we'll have a double sort of milieu thing where there's... there's a Jane Austen reenactment society in the same village as a new drone business is taking off. And there's sort of clash of cultures with it. There's people coming into the village with the people who've always been in the village. So you have a clash of old and new or some sort of cultural thing. But really, there's so much within that. You've got so much breadth of anything that you can write about. You put on any episode, it's an episode of Midsomer, but it's got an almost entirely new cast with a new milieu, written by a new writer, directed by a new director. So each film is very kind of freestanding thing on its own. I think also a great thing for us doing it that I've realised is that we shoot for 4 weeks and then we have a preparation week before the next one starts. So we finish filming an episode, we've sort of taken it to bits and done everything we can with that, and that finishes on the Friday night. And on the Monday morning we regather for a read-through of the next episode with a whole new cast, new director, and that if you're, wherever you are in the series, if you're feeling I'm exhausted, we finished another episode and I'm exhausted and we've drained that one, and you turn up to working on the Monday and you go, everybody else in the room is going, wow, it's an episode of Midsomer, we're doing Midsomer, this is great, it's really exciting. And, and you're working with some brilliant people, you really have to sort of get up again and you have to constantly, up your game to keep up with the new injection of enthusiasm and excitement that everybody brings to a new episode every 4 or 5 weeks. And again, I think that with the variety, I think that keeps renewing it every time, I hope. It does for me, and that keeps it sort of fresh to do as well, that new energy coming in. I think what I always wanted even before I thought becoming an actor really was, I wanted something that would have variety, that would keep sort of inspiring me or exciting me in different ways, going forward and doing, that you're always doing different things. Ironically, I have, as you pointed out, ended up doing sort of the same thing for 15 years. But even that, you're always working in different places with different people on different stories. So even when it's the same, it's completely different from one week to the next.
Okay, bonus question that everyone wants me to ask you. How big is the Midsomer County?
Well, it's very, very large, you see. You need a certain familiarity with English geography. But we film over probably about 4 or 5 English counties. I assume that Midsomer is on some sort of astral plane. It's the size of several actual counties. It's a very big county, very rural, with lots of little villages dotted around it. But it's a big area. I think it has to be quite a big area, otherwise sometimes people say, how are there so many murders in that little village? And you think, you couldn't have 350 murders in 25 years in a village you'd have killed everybody in the village and there would have been questions asked about why there's so many murders in this village. It's not a village, it's a county, it's a very big county, and spread out, as I say, among all these little beautiful, picturesque, but potentially deadly little villages. But that's what England's like. When you get outside London, the big cities, that's what it's like. It's little villages scattered around, full of eccentric people, and I'm afraid some of them sooner or later are going to snap and kill each other. We're just reporting what's happening out there.